I'm with one of my favorite plants today. Elacampane, or Inula, is the Latin name. Behind me is in the sunflower family. Similar to Jerusalem artichokes, it grows tall and has these big leaves that look almost like an artichoke but lamb's ear soft. People always touch them and go, "Is this lamb's ear?" But it's giant. And I say, "Yes, it's a giant lamb's ear," but actually it's not at all related. I don't think. I can look that up. I actually don't know. But it's soft like that. And big, lush, lush, like an artichoke, sunflower, lamb's ear, soft. And when it blooms, which you'll see later, it's starting to create these tall, rising blooms. They will be sunflowers, yellow, beautiful, smaller, They're very special for their root. The root is a sticky seed, juicy seed. Sorry, why am I saying a seed? It's a juicy, sticky root ball. It's a giant root ball. These things grow the biggest root balls, and you can go in and like hack it in half every year and transplant it somewhere else. Take a quarter of it, and you'll get like all this medicine for your lungs, for decongestant, for asthma support, tonic, for ancestor grief, metabolization. I find it takes the sticky, stuck things of bronchitis and asthma and anything emotional and ancestral, and dark and sticky and heavy, and it transmutes it into the sunflower. So you can imagine it would relieve symptoms of an ailment, but it would, I mean, of course, also do that in an intergenerational trauma sense. So you can work with it energetically too, which you can. You just take a drop of it and watch your lungs receive the medicine for the ancestral work, the grief, of course, that we have there. I love Elacampane just as a spirit. I find that it is like a peaceful, fertile, abundant, strong healer warrior. Like I see it as strong. Like it how like if I were gonna go to war with one plant, that would help not just one, but like with some. This would be like on the team. It's so beautiful. We are going to war. Why do I say that? This is Venus's realm, the land of love and war. So we are going to love and work and war. Hi ho, hi ho. Hone it out. In paradise, crying away. Um, so we need this, right? Lung support, allyship. We need allyship so bad. This plant teaches allyship. It's very friendly. It's very friendly. It's like, oh, you got those problems here. I got really good solutions for it. I make it sweet, sticky. I get to the bottom and just work it out, and I help clear it, and I help make it lighter and brighter. And I just have this friend energy from it. It's kind of like what a friend does. They take your hard stuff and they do that. They say, let's have a dinner. Call me. Or they'll call you right at the right moment and say, I'm going to come over. Or I'll take you out. Or how about we just talk this out, and they'll stay on the phone with you. Because they really want to. They really want to check in on you because there's a connection. A connection's a magical thing, it's a sacred thing. You can't control it. It makes rich people mad. That's why they try to do these bad things with their relationship and intimacy stuff. They can't control that attraction thing. So then they just kind of mess with it. People get really bratty with what they can't have when they're addicted to having things. What a horrible addiction. Isn't that interesting? Maybe I'm addicted to not having things. That's a horrible addiction too. I had to quit many different paths because I can't afford these kinks of alternative culture. Essentially, capitalism's already stressed me out so much. I think I just do it in a dumb way. A lot of other people do what I've done and they do just fine. But I'm out here talking to plants, so maybe that's why I spend my time in relationship. But I do find threads of the sacred just live with me all the time. I see miracles. I get to do healing work. The plants taught me that. I was running away from people because I find people very difficult. Uh, Not really, but I do find what society makes us do and stuff, and what that does to people's conversations and behaviors are really challenging. Even the way we organize our systems, around the goals of capitalism, it's very scary. Yeah, it's sad. It's very sad. Well, I'm sad about some things, anyways. That distracts me. Yes, I do cry in paradise, and I need plants like this. So when I ran away to the plants, they kind of taught me how they've been healers, co-evolving with people. They're the first family, the first people, and they are our ancestors and old relatives. And they taught me I'd never be really alone, and I have had them, and I have had many other things too besides people. And I guess what I'm appreciating in that at this point. Is similar to what I appreciated as a transgender man. I was supposed to be a woman, but I wasn't. I was a butch, a tomboy. And at a certain point, I took testosterone because it was euphoric. And here I am, 44-year-old male passing person who I still feel like a tomboy, and I'm a man. And so I bridge that duality. And in the garden, I guess I feel my humanity, but I feel like I've gotten along with the non human a bit in this way that I really idealize, like um and it's a different way of being that it's taught me. They taught me about healing, and so now I'm a healer. I'm a traditional medicine practitioner. I actually have a license and I practice, and I've gotten to see for over 10 years now in a queer community, especially, or from my own queer lens, you could say, anyways, a unique point of view of people. They are a whole soap opera universe with constantly changing parts, and it's such a show. And so I was walked back to people through medicine. I'm in a medicine garden, and these are some of my friends that saved my life. The relationships they teach me, they help me be better with people. They each have a different way they help people. It's so cool. It reminds me of different parts of myself, or like just gonna appreciate, like, oh, I'm kind of like this, or I'm kind of like this one. And like I appreciate all of us a bit. I just became curious, an astrologer, healer, walked back towards people, doing traditional medicine, which is a conversation between the earth and stars and with our soul work. Dream web catcher there. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful conversation. My Gaelic ancestors in that language, they would say, "What's the craic?" Craic. What's the craic? What's craic? And my southern ancestors that descended from that part of the world were like, "What's cracking? What's cracking?" And I sound like a parrot. Polly, want a cracker? I had to say that. Sure, my ancestors were pirates, colonists, still are. So sad, but it's just like built in. Anyways, we are abolitionists. I actually came from freedom fighters and abolitionists, and a lot of the lineages of different various religions, spiritualities are. And as a gender spiritualist and liberation theologist, I feel that divine gender, sacred gender, among the elements of the garden and our animist languages with the nonverbal, the plants, animals, the sky, the wind, the trees, the ocean, the waters, we can talk with the breath, all of it. Um, there's so many conversations you can have. Bees, different plants, um, green world, red world, blue world. The rainbow world is really all of our ancestors and allies, right? Not only in the human sense of like all the different kinds of allies in our life, and really being that center of them, where we get to grow, how we get to be in relationship. I mean, that's the primary thing. And I've had to welcome in more non-human relationship, and I'm fighting myself to go back to human society and start to teach. And this is why this channel exists, but also in person I'll be gathering in the garden. But I want people to have relationships with the sacred that are just there because they are. So we have the body, the land around us, and we can talk to everything. And that's what the crake is. What's the crack? What's in the crack? Mind the gap. There is a conversation of the divine nature coming all the time. In and out of our thoughts. What's our thoughts? We haven't been taught that enough. Where do they come from? Where do they go? What different kinds of thoughts can you channel? What's the difference? Everybody stresses out that point. Well, you gotta explore it. You didn't know what to do with the equipment when you walked to the gym either. But then at a certain point, you became a monkey and a gym rat. Well, Do it that way. Everybody freaks out about language with gender too. Like, oh, all these transgender people are inventing language and asking me to do different things. Well, how long did it take you to learn the word COVID and coronavirus? Wah, wah, wah. Smallest fiddle in the world. We learn your language a million times. We have to say it every day as if it were ours. Psh, for a shame. You know, it's everybody's job not to stay weak and dumb. And I'm sorry, but that's just real. Everybody can complain they want about somebody else, but that's just a sign they're avoiding their work at becoming less ignorant and less disempowered by their narrative. If you want to blame it on somebody else, you know there's some work you're avoiding, you'll explain just what that work is by whatever you're targeting, too. Obviously, if you're targeting trans people, you got a serious path to integrate about being trans. I am curious. I am curious if people vilify doing hormone replacement therapy or gender affirming changes to their body, if they would go after the majority of people that actually do that, because those are cisgender people and heterosexual people. Most people that do gender affirming surgeries and hormone replacement therapy are cisgender heterosexual people. Why would we eliminate a whole population just because they're transgender for trying to do that version of that? That is so ridiculous. It's not an argument of do I exist and can you acknowledge and say my gender. I'm not gonna weigh my existence whether or not some people do their homework and become less ignorant, because you know humans resist that. That's the natural tension here. And so why would I set myself up for that disappointment, which of course would be built into everything? I'm not convincing people what they don't know. I'm here as a teacher. I'll make my offerings to those who are really ready to do that work, to see their mirror and stop kicking it and become the truth, arriving there out of their argument, realize it's with themselves. And it articulates what the need is to integrate. Well, if so many people are needing transgender integration, I mean, obviously, the whole world went crazy over it. And I'm like, yeah, because we introduced the theory without the culture. I transitioned into queer culture. Now all these people are transitioning in heterosexual cisgender culture, and they are confused about their own hormone replacement therapy, their own gender affirming care and surgeries and modifications of their body. Everybody's doing it obsessively, going to the gym, dieting, doing this and that, sculpting and surgeries and all kinds of things. This is a cisgender heterosexual world doing that. All these testosterone and estrogen prescriptions. This heavy stuff, everybody's trying to figure out from within. And our arguments can be transmuted, just similar to this friend. Maybe it's part of our grief, right? Where we hold this sense of like, oh, it'll never end and it's so painful and it's misunderstanding. Well, what about the fact that we're all looking in a mirror, crying there in paradise? And I talk to plants and it helps. And it helps me talk to everything in a sacred way and listen to what's there. And I wish for the world to have its gender journey. It's screaming for it, obviously. It needs it. And I find there's no right way but your way. It's called euphoria, and it guides you. And there's no villain in the medical industry. Cisgender and heterosexual people are they're mostly doing it. Why would we vilify transgender people for doing what everybody else is doing, but doing a trans version of it? As if it were mutilation, people say that, or a waste? Are you kidding me? Do you know how much cisgender and heterosexual people do in that name of mutilation and waste? Just the name of beauty and belonging? Beauty and belonging are a sacred thing. How would that ever be a mutilation or a waste just because it wasn't what you expected? You know, it's called aesthetic. Shame, shame. You're gonna keep yourself separate from a basic thing right there, right? Poo-pooing on somebody's art. Well, bless the beings who do art and make it and who just don't shut someone else's pleasure down. Bless the ones at the Pride Parade. You know? Because we know what the opposite of that is. So be careful which side you're on, you know. Make sure you're understanding your integration of the rainbow. It's a sacred act of all your parts work. And everybody's doing that. But queers really lead the way, don't we? Because we have all these parts very obviously integrated. What a sacred doorway to live in. Maybe you ought to explore your own version of it. Because we all have one. Our own inner queer part to integrate our own experience of queerness. Everybody needs to understand what their gender. Everybody needs to understand what that is. I hope everybody has their gender awakening, you know, They're so afraid of the woke. It is scary. It would maybe change the world if it realized what its gender journey was. It changes worlds to awaken to what's really there through your own intuition. It's too empowering. You know, colonization stole every piece of that empowerment of your intuition and you guiding your way. I'm blessed I'm trans because I had to have it. I didn't have a choice. People who aren't trans are at risk from being colonized more. Don't you want to know who you really are and reclaim your intuition? Open the gates of euphoria, self-determination in relationship with the divine path and purpose unfolding. You have to listen to the big story you're part of, see the order. Essentialism of gender, absolutely woven through everything. You can't discredit that. You don't tell me you're academic enough to have some degree to do that. I'm a traditional medicine practitioner. How arrogant of people to cut the body off from the cosmos and everything and have this floating head say gender was constructed. Just a construct? Are you kidding me? It's woven into the anatomy and physiology, everything, including its spiritual nature. It's going back into every system of the world. It's about healing and its mechanism of harmonious design. Of course, you need to understand polarity. We live in this polarized world of binaries, a binary universe. You want to have a non-binary identity in a binary universe. Do you understand you're becoming an anti-universe, an oppositional universe? Now, I always thought of queer as a fertile place to everything, like the Tao is saying of the this and the that makes the 10,000 things. So I love the 10,000 things of the queer space, of the third space. If you're in astrology, you got your sun and moon, and your rising sign makes the piece there of that third space of like, well, how about we just split the pie like this? And everybody's happy if you do it right. So follow your rising sign, split that pie right. Make sure you get, the relationship's right. And it's up to you because it's subjective. And the goal and the objective is subjective too. You're center of a universe that has its own truth and it's evolving just like according to its need and truth and orientation. Why would we fight this? It's like fighting true love. Why would we fight that? Of course, it's the better movie when we don't.